Oh, how have I blank this language from the sovereign of my joys? Oh. Hey. Uh, Peter, is it? I think just using aliases is probably as good as anything else. um, Stefan. No, can't remember. Um, it was amazing. The whole thing was amazing. Peter. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've just gone through Christmas and holidays since then, so I haven't really had a whole lot of time to process everything that happened. Um, which basically means kind of getting to work on some of the video that I did, which actually try and do some of the editing here. I mean, my overall impression actually is that the ideology of the West um is very, very powerful, such that just being back a week has already smothered this breathing kind of socialist spirit, and it's actually hard to even remember. Um, whereas a week ago it was quite tangible. So yeah, but I have to say that yeah, yeah. Well, the relativism that we live in is really overpowering. Um, I come back with this great feeling of solidarity with the Cubans, and now I feel like I live in this relativistic, cosmopolitan um, ethos where why bother helping the Cubans when everyone else, so many other people are suffering too, which is, I guess, this internal mantra of the petty bourgeois in order to just isolate them and continue consuming. Um, you know what I found? Um, I had to return some books to the library, and I had to dig them up because I found this book here, um, Confucian Way, a new and systematic study of the four books by Li Fu Chen, which is very classical rigor. It's very interesting. it uh, goes through um, the books in a very systematic way. Yeah, yeah. I must admit the exceptionalism is quite strong to the extent that I basically believe it. No, I know it has a kind of a funny cover. You know what I might try and do? Let's see if I can get this camera to actually focus on the book. I'll try this out as a little experiment here. I have to tell you, I streamed a little last night, and the ease with which I can stream here compared to those very difficult circumstances in Cuba, is just another reflection of the luxury we have here. I'm really still quite uncomfortable actually in how luxurious and easy life is here. Um, it just seems so empty. There's just so many choices and so much ease. It doesn't really seem to matter what you do. Can't really go wrong. At like a but yeah, um let me throw open the other camera. See if I can do a document cam, which is something I'd wanted to do before, but I've never tried. Yeah, yeah, and I don't. One of the strange things that um, I'm reflecting on. Like, there's such nobility in the struggle of the Cuban people, um, and yet it's kind of an artificial struggle because basically, as soon as they are integrated into the um, consumer capitalist world, then the nobility of the struggle will be gone, and they all would prefer that, reasonably so. And so it's kind of weird that there seems to be an actual nobility out of kind of thwarting an artificial isolation. And that's, I think, why I was actually so struck and taken by the prospect of helping Cuba. Not because, I'm a fellow traveler in the socialist revolution, which thankfully I made that error a decade ago, and I don't think I'm gonna go back. Um, but more because like how cheap it is to help Cubans and how good you feel about it, just from a hedonistic standpoint. Um, like I know I don't remember if I told you, but this painter that I bought this painting from, like he said that he needs art materials, um, and almonds. Like he lacks almonds. Um, and that's a kind of a case study in what type of deprivation they face because almonds. I thought about it. Almonds cost like $8-10 US a pound, and how can I do? They the monthly wage is like $30 or $40 US, the equivalent of $30 or $40 US. So they don't have enough money to buy a pound of almonds. Like you would never in that economy. Oh shit. Oh fuck. I fucked everything up. Let's see, what am I doing here? This probably, you know what actually probably work This is like way too much experimenting. But oh well, I can't resist. Like the struggle. I loved our struggle here in Cuba. That was so fun and so challenging that I can't resist using your presence to experiment further. Oh yeah. Okay. These are my other books that I've excavated. It'd actually be nice to have that as my background. But yeah, I still have to see, you know, what remains of my quest here, since I feel like I have been jolted a bit out of the quest for knowledge as I was before, but I think it's still intact. Okay, look at that. Looks kind of nice, actually. Okay. Darn. I don't know. Have you streamed yourself? Any recently? Better if it were over there. Move everything. I don't think this is even worth the trouble. I balanced it up there. The people I was hanging out with, who you had a chance to meet, as I mentioned, like, I think she was a Buddhist, and I think she may have even quoted Confucius to me first. Yes. So yeah, I'm actually keenly kind of interested in well, it poses the whole question again, you know, like what the status of Confucius in Cuba might be, you know, because I mean the overall question is, you know, is there anything distinctive about the ideology in Cuba that has any lasting power, or is it really just this relic, maybe a luxurious, from an ideological point of view, luxurious socialist relic, but it's basically like visiting the past. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll not experiment with this anymore. Couldn't resist. Such a cool book. It's so systematic. It's kind of boring, but I feel like it's real. Wanna kind of go deeply through all of the Confucian corpus. It would be the way to go. So maybe as a sample, I'll read the section on poverty and wealth, which is it's nice. There are all these little like bite-size sections, and just for a little, this was published or translated, no, written by Li Fu Chen in New Jersey in October 1966. And yeah, it's really interesting. But pretty straightforward. So here's poverty and wealth. Let me make this better hearing wise. Where do you locate Heidegger's theory of change? Is that in the black notebooks? I'm kind of a bit surprised at that point of view. I mean, I recently completed um, a book by a former professor of mine, kind of summarizing Heidegger's oeuvre, and I definitely came away from that. And in general, I mean, he seems to be quite a conservative Catholic in general. So, what would a conservative Catholic think of Cuba? Um, and in general, also his politics seem to be rather rather ontological, and in that way, kind of idealistic and very theoretical, rather than progressive. So, um, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to parse the Heidegger Cuba combination. Um, Poverty and wealth. This is this is section 16 out of the chapter The Extension of Knowledge. Wow, look at this open up my dashboard to Hmm. Yes. Um hmm. Let's see. I think I got the first. I'm not sure if there might have been a sentence there I missed. You know if there's a way for me to look at the last chat. Fortunate. Um Feature of Twitch, if that's so. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, I see. Let me try and dig up your remark before I. Okay. Yeah, man. Sure. Sounds good to me. Um. Da, da, da. I don't know how to make a mod. interesting that kind of utterly anarchic provocateur activity does seem about as far as you could get from the common struggle in Cuba. It's very hard to imagine uh, such casual uh, viciousness. It's like people. It's really a luxurious situation where people um, uh, have the pastime of casual cruelty. Casual cruelty. And oh, mod. Okay, cool. You are modded, and I appreciate the offer of help. Yeah, and in general, in my observation of the modding, I think a quick and ruthless absolute um, banishment is the proper way. Um, if people don't have the common decency to reserve their criticism before even uh, kind of announcing themselves, then unless it's especially brilliant or insightful, I would just banish anyone immediately if they choose to just be casually cruel. So that's my assessment. Giving people a second chance, I think, is an error. Hmm. Okay. Now. Oh yes, yes. As I was saying. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna explain the chapter headings of this on Confucius. Yeah, the chapter headings show you how kind of dry and systematic it is. Chapter 2, the investigation of things. Chapter 3, the extension of knowledge. Chapter 4, the sincerity of thoughts. Chapter 5, the rectification of hearts. Chapter 6, the cultivation of the person. Chapter 7, the regulation of the family. Chapter 8, the government of the state. Chapter 9, the pacification of the world. And Chapter 10, conclusion. So, um, and under extension of knowledge, where I was going to show you or read quite arbitrarily poverty and wealth. That is section 16 under chapter 3, section I, knowledge of things. Now, this is the systematic study, but I think it includes the rights. Like it's all. I really do want to kind of show this to you. Book. Maybe okay. I'll give it one more shot with the double cam, and I'll use the cam as like an eye, a handheld eye. Because the thing I like about this is that it's quite authentic, in that it's written by a genuine Chinese. Okay, yeah, okay. About in that height. Okay. Yeah. Okay, and let me show you the table of contents. It actually refers to Ezra Pound in here. But yeah, all the footnotes look like this. Like throughout the whole book. Come on, stay focused. Let's stay focused. But as you can see, even though it's going in and out of focus, all the footnotes are just direct quotes from Mencius, Analects, Doctrine of the Mean, Analect, you know, and then Investigation of Things, Extension of Knowledge, knowledge of heaven, knowledge of destiny, knowledge of nature, illustration of the way, illustration of virtue, illustration of instruction, knowledge of men. I just love the comprehensivity, the self-confident comprehensivity. Because it's just like almost a cliff notes, a very detailed cliff notes of the entire Confucian corpus. Difficult and easy, thick and thin, glory and disgrace, poverty and prosperity, nobility and lowliness. So, thematic summation. And so, yeah. It actually reminds me a lot of a book I was reading yesterday. Which came up in the machine. Of this American historian from kind of the Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, please do tell me when it is. And I will do my best to attend. I realize my preference is much for spontaneity. It's probably a weakness. The thought of planning a stream is abhorrent to me. Oh yeah. Okay. $150. Okay. I won't hold you, and but do let me give you this sample. It's less than a page. Although if you do feel you need to run, I understand. Just to give you a sample of this prose form. Poverty and wealth. Although poverty and wealth are contrasting words, their standards are not absolute. Normally, he whose income is not sufficient to support his family is poor, and only he who has a considerable surplus can be called wealthy. But he who, along with his surplus, also has a fondness for benevolence and propriety is truly wealthy. At the other end of the scale, he who, though poor, is happy and does not lose his righteousness is not injured by his poverty. God, that is profound. Zhu Kung said, and this is a quote from... Okay. Thanks for giving me some sense of the parameters. As you probably know me well enough, I dive right in, kind of fearing the end, all the time. Yeah. So then there's a quote from Meng Tzu, book 6. Tzu Kung said, "What do you pronounce concerning the poor man who yet does not flatter, and the rich man who is not proud?" The master replied, "They will do, but they are not equal to him who, though poor, is yet cheerful, and to him who, though rich, loves the rules of propriety. Tzu Kung said, "It is said in the Book of Songs, as you cut and then file, as you carve and then polish." That quote we looked at. The meaning is the same, I apprehend, as that which you have just expressed. The master said, "With one like Tzu, I can begin to talk about the odes. I told him past, and he knew what is to follow in future." The treatment of virtue as the root and wealth as a branch was the greatest discovery made by Confucius. So says Li Fu Chen. Virtue as the root and wealth as the branch. The greatest discovery. It has now become the center of Oriental culture. This was written in 1966. And the foundation of the faith of scholars in their repose in poverty and delight in the way. Hence it was said, "Riches and honors are what men desire. If it cannot be done in the proper way, they should not be held. Poverty and meanness are what men dislike. If it cannot be done in the proper way, they should not be avoided. If a superior man abandons benevolence, how can he fulfill the requirements of that name?" That, if I recall correctly, was from the Analects. Verify that. Yep, that was from Book 4, Chapter 5. If a man is poor but happy, he delights in the way, is at peace, and naturally no longer flatters. If a man is rich but fond of propriety, he rests in benevolence, practices righteousness, and naturally is no longer proud. Well, I like that wherever the scholar goes, the gentleman scholar goes, civilization follows. So the soil truly is the mind and life of the scholar, and that cannot be barbarized by unpropitious soil. Although I will at the same time definitely admit certain soils are more fertile than others. This is what is meant by the observation. This is almost finished. Let a man first stand fast in the supremacy of the nobler part of his constitution, and the inferior part will not be able to take it from him. That was Mengzi. However, if excessive importance were attached to repose in poverty, if the necessity for educating the people to promote their well-being were neglected, it would be detrimental to the national economy and cause the economic ruin of the country concerned. This would be an unfortunate misinterpretation of the way of Confucius. So anyway, that's basically how the book goes. It's like 50% quotes and then a very straightforward kind of summation of the meaning without scholarly apparatus or anything. But you know, like that single line, the treatment of virtue as the root and wealth as a branch was the greatest discovery made by Confucius. You couldn't even make such a claim in modern scholarly discourse. Just not allowed. So it's curious kind of whence such confidence. But that actually, I mean, me personally, you know, taking delight in virtue, doing the right thing, say like genuinely trying to figure out how to help out Cuban people, while holding down a job, a basic job, that itself is somewhat uh, directly and indirectly involved in helping people, and being satisfied with that because of the virtuous spread. Um, that's pretty good. I have to say the line about if you can't take care of your family, you're poor. That kind of cuts close to home. I spent the holidays with my family, and my family's kind of in shambles, um, in a certain way. Though I do actually feel poor in that if I did have better resources, I could assist my family more than I can. And it's basically my fault that I'm not in that situation, and I should have been and should remain or strive to be. Seeing that the Tao was put into practice in the morning, I could die a joyous death in the evening. Yeah, yeah. Well, earlier today, I listened to the whole of the um meditation on impermanence, on the uncertainty of death, from Tsongkhapa's stages on the path to enlightenment. Um, it's always really like cutting. That chapter is really one of the most jarring, fatalistic, existential confrontations with the basic parameters of human existence. And it does not go in the Confucian angle uh, of kind of helping out others. I mean, it does. It basically, they seem to have some notion of virtue too, like doing the right thing. Like you shouldn't, but it's all kind of bound up in the Dharma. Um, and then, what's more important, actually helping people or, meditating? That seems to be kind of difficult to tease out. And it's much more on the meditating, kind of existential isolation, preparation for death. You're not going to bring anything with you, none of your possessions, not certainly not your family. Um, and so, but I think in general, selflessness uh, is better in the virtue scale of Buddhism. Whereas that's too abstract and not specific enough from the Confucian angle. Um, and yeah, because I don't think Buddhism would say cultivate your family. Like that in itself is a form of attachment. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I miss it. Man, that was hella fun. I watched the video from Cuba when we were trying to get the donation thing working. That was cool. The video came out and I got to like listen to the recordings, and it was cool that the audio came through clear out at the cafe, but that the video wasn't coming through clear. It's definitely doable. Um so many thoughts. This medium is astonishingly restrictive. Communicating with people purely through text is like, it's like, I don't know what. It's bizarre, really. Um so we have to I invite you heartily to another day to let's uh let's try and do like an actual conversation um through Discord or something. Figure out how to do that. I've never done that on here. Oh, here's a good one. Exclamation point. I say charge. I was happy to find out that I still take delight in this quote unquote game. I really think it has a lot of potency. Cool. Um yeah, it's not, I don't know. I'm still, we'll see. Um I work tomorrow. I'm going to work tomorrow anyway. And then I'll have uh another 3-day week. Oh, look at that. Kill. Kill. What is this from? Got a guess on where I'm gonna say this is from. I have no idea. What do I have in here? I have no idea. I'm gonna say Cicero. Shelley. Uh, I gotta find this one. Kill. Whoops. Have you ever streamed on any other sites? I did my first look at doing this on Facebook Live. I think it actually makes a lot more sense. I mean, it Facebook Live does not seem to be that, I mean, it's definitely different, and Twitch is kind of like a self-contained world, but you know, it's going to be a pretty small minority of people who are interested in learning here on Twitch, unfortunately. Yeah. I was thinking of throwing it up on there. I have kind of studiously avoided Facebook my whole life. And I'm not exactly keen on kind of reappearing in the lives of people I haven't kept track of with this random uh um you know this stream that I do. Uh okay. But I think there's definitely a greater potential to reach people. Um if that's even, yeah, I think it is kind of good. At least for my purposes. Not bad. Okay. Here is, the kill. Let's see. But first, go slay the rebels. Why return the victor bands, he said. Millions yet live, of whom the weakest with one word might turn the scales of victory yet. Let none survive but those within the walls. Each fifth shall give the expiation for his brethren here. Go forth and waste and kill. O king, forgive my speech, a soldier answered, but we fear the spirits of the night, and morn is drawing near. Okay. Not exactly sure what you're talking about, but yeah, well, I this is actually streaming on YouTube Live. YouTube also. I'm using Restream .io. I don't really catch up. I don't keep track of it at all, but there was actually one subscriber a couple of weeks ago, and then one comment. Two comments actually. Not very lengthy, but so yeah. Well, my next. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I see. Uh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, please. Yeah, I don't have any, well, like almost zero experience, and yeah, I'm thinking with what I've got, um, I, you know, maybe like I have two kind of separate things I want to do. One, this meeting I had with this musician, where I kind of recorded the whole meeting. I met him on the street by the shore, and I went back to his place and ate lunch with him. This old musician. And I have his CD, so I kind of want to package that all together into a single story. Um, and then has a couple other things, a couple interviews with painters, and then these interviews with the people I was staying with about how the economy works, how the safety net works. Yeah, please do send that along. For we were slaying still without remorse, and now that the dreadful chief beneath my hand defenseless lay, when on a hell-black horse, an angel bright as day, waving a brand, which flashed among the stars, passed. Dost thou stand parleying with me, thou wretch? The king replied. Slaves, bind him to the wheel. And of this band, whoso will drag that woman to his side that scared him thus, may burn his dearest foe beside, and gold and glory shall be his. Go forth. You can feel free to depart whenever you please. I'm kind of riding along these soldiers now. They rushed into the plain. Loud was the roar of their career. The horsemen shook the earth. The wheeled artillery's speed the pavement tore. The infantry, file after file, did pour their clouds on the utmost hills. 5 days they slew among the wasted fields. The 6th saw gore stream through the city. On the 7th, the dew of slaughter became stiff, and there was peace anew. Peace in the desert fields and villages, between the glutted beasts and mangled dead. Peace in the silent streets, save when the cries of victims to their fiery judgment led. made pale their voiceless lips, which seemed to dread, even in their dearest kindred, lest some tongue be faithless to the fear yet unbetrayed. Peace in the tyrant's palace, where the throng waste the triumphal hours in festival and song. What is this poem? Canto 10 of... Oh, I don't know. This is a very interesting historian. This guy, Nolte. Didn't come up with a sentence, but... If for 200, these 12 triarchs must blank 2 ships. If for 300, 3. Equip. Yes. Herodotus? Demosthenes. Cool. Check this out. Wow. Wow, this is sweet. This is your surfing trip?
De novice, sauf qu'il a resté dramatique. Chaque départ m'attriste, plus mec. Le Tchekar m'a pris but, frère. N'importe quel flic dans ces rues de merde. Cette nuit, j'ai compris que nous étions nos pires ennemis. Un peu de baisse et les frappes paniques à base de coups de larmes. Beaucoup de larmes, nous on s'embrouille plus, on s'est addict. On veut luxer la vie de rêve, mais bon, vu que c'est l'époque qui décide, on joue des coups qui tassent, fixer l'épaule. Ce qui se dessine, rien de vraiment drôle, l'été s'y se décime. Toi j'ai mon rôle, sauver mon boule, et même si je déprime, un frère tombe sous les balles d'un de ses semblables. En blague, en bas, on n'a plus besoin de personne, on se crève entre nous. Nos airs en barge en dessous, on s'aime pas tellement, on se bouffe. Et si tu t'en sors, on te sera peut-être mort. On baissera bêtement, tu connais la coutume.
Wow.
Cagoule et tes agresseurs te connaissent à coup sûr.
Super cool.
sur l'amour, tu te fais des films. On se voyait ensemble sur l'affiche, mais le blé décide, puis l'insolente jalousie. Ça mettre en scène la violence, repère l'amitié pour que la concurrence la bousille. Clap, les caméras tournent et je n'ai qu'une seule prise. Ouais, qu'une seule vie, je n'ai qu'une seule chance pour que le sun brille. Qu'on se le dise, les doublures échouent dès le casting. En arrière-plan, la rancune laisse les carrières statiques. Le pèse nous refait le scénar, nous écrit d'autres scènes. Figurant, se frustre, la rage et l'envie l'obsède. Son vieux rêve de gloire se résume en un signe obscène. Des kilos de peine sur le dos, il improvise le crime, le synopsis de nos vies. Ne connaît pas de logique, le mal braque son objectif. Tous face à fibre optique, les gamins se crèvent à la tâche. Unis on se ligue, mais le succès n'accueille pas tout le monde, alors on se nique.
I like it. What software did you use to do the editing? The cradle of modern culture. I like the systematicity of it. Seem to have captured each part, or at least the sequence. the ability to package experience, I find thought-worthy. And then how that relates to doing these streams. And then, as earlier, my utter laziness regarding preparation. And then you know, how shall I post process for what end? I actually had a conversation at this state restaurant with my friend, which got quite dark in a certain way, which is a serious aspect of my worldview. I'm very resistant to making things palatable and positivity. And it's not that as a principle, but it's born out of a certain holding back, and that as the principle. I don't know. Whoa. Who said that? Frankly, it also relates to poverty and wealth, where because of a particular stubbornness combined with the range of my prospects, I kind of just caved in on myself for like 10 years. And the whole notion of travel, I actually, on principle, or as I thought, oh, I see, I let go of, which was very strange, because earlier on in my life I enjoyed travel, but then for quite a long time I was lost.
Your light shines and you beam with such confidence. Don't you ever get the urge to want to open doors and see what lies behind the ones that were closed before? Don't you ever want to change what you're going for? And don't you ever get the feeling that there's so much more? Yeah, so dare to explore and challenge yourself to reach heights you've never seen before. Go ahead, touch the sky. Life is much too short. Don't ever settle for less. If you want it, the world can be yours. Yeah. Don't you ever feel like moving away to a place where they don't know your name or face? Leave everything behind but your one suitcase. Take what you love and the rest replace. And don't you ever feel like starting from scratch? Erase every mistake you made in the past. Slow life down when it's moving too fast. Change your direction, avoid the crash. And don't you ever feel like taking a leap? Don't you feel trapped inside of someone unique? Caught in the same routine every week, feeling like your life is so incomplete. So don't you ever feel like breaking the mold, trying something new and letting go of the old. Take a different path and not the same old road. You gotta take a risk if you plan to grow.
Yeah, so dare to explore and challenge yourself to reach heights you've never seen before. Go ahead, touch the sky. Life is much too short. Don't ever settle for less. If you want it, the world can be yours. Yo, the world can be yours. Everyone's got a gift, but what you gonna do with it? Everyone's got a gift, but what you gonna do with it? Everyone's got
Pretty nice waves in Bali.
What you gonna do with it? Everyone's got a gift, but what you gonna do with it? I don't want the whole world, just a piece of it. I don't want the whole thing, you can keep it. I don't wanna try to carry the weight. Give me 3 wishes. Be patient and wait for me to decide. I got dreams, but most of them will push it aside. Don't push me off the edge unless you're sure I can fly. But if you're so sure, how come I can't see the same potential in myself when I look at the man in the mirror and I feel so inferior? Insecure cause my security was shattered when I answered the call and stood face to face with the truth. There's no way to return to the days of my youth. Only a coward runs away and escapes from reality. A coward backs down when the situation is challenging. So the power of love will define my courage when I seek your face and find my purpose. Yeah, so dare to explore and challenge yourself to reach heights you've never seen before. Go ahead, touch the sky. Life is much too short. Don't ever settle for less. If you want it, the world can be yours. Everyone's got a gift, but what you gonna do with it? At some point everybody's gonna fail, but will you give in or refuse to quit?
And everyone's got dreams, but what you gonna do with yours?
Most of the video, almost all the video that I have that I want to use involves someone talking.
Want so much more. I want so much more.
And it's all in Spanish, so it has to be translated.
So much more. Yeah, so dare to explore and challenge yourself to reach heights you've never seen before. Go ahead, touch the sky. Life is much too short. Don't ever settle for less. If you want it, the world can be yours.
Wow, 15 months? That's awesome.
On the church steps.
Zarathustra
To kiss your chest.
got a shout out.
How we paid such close attention to each sweet and stuttered breath. I should have stopped to paint our picture, captured honest, pure affection.
I can do the translating.
To document the
I
difference
want to do the
between
translating.
attraction and connection. I can see all of my friends and I break into empty buildings when the coast is clear with backpacks full of beer. We'd throw our bottles from the rooftops at the city. I still don't see the difference between real purpose and that urgent adolescence. And I remember in the basement sharing sweat with all these stranger boys and girls. We'll change the world, we sang, we'll change the world, but nothing
Who is this?
they seem adolescent, but I still see much more power in that basement than in heartless politicians. If we get beaten by this winter, if we get strangled by regret, just let our love of life and tension gasp in sweet and stubborn breaths and have them lay us in the basement, smash the bottles on the ground, and say we couldn't tell the difference between the feeling and the sound. Remember not our faulty
I have a strange relationship to music.
find us, but really hold our hearts
I resist
over their heads. I hope they
aesthetic
eventually
objects.
decide my gravestone when I'm dead. When we are dead, let our voices carry on to find a better song, to find a better song, and sing along, sing along.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I guess I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like the question of like, what form should the video take is somehow in my mind always preceded by what am I gonna do with it? And then it just reposes the question of what is this humanitarian impulse and what form can it take? Or is it even humanitarian, which is not 100% obvious and probably not even straightforwardly so. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't tabulated them all, but it's, I mean, it's not that long at all. Not that much material at all. Anyway, it kind of overwhelms me at the moment, or at least I haven't done much with it as of yet for a variety of reasons. This looks like Hegel. Conversely, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Conversely, the element of science is for consciousness a remote beyond in which it no longer blank itself. Comprehend? Yeah, well, I don't know. I have demonstrated to you in principle by the example of Aristotle's metaphysics. I think this might be Heidegger. Adorno. Cool, man. Thank you, Peter, for stopping by. Really great to see you. And thanks for showing me that. Have a nice sleep. That torments our blank, which has attended all this soul. Yes! Dante. Rehearsal? What is that? Beautiful. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Alas, when now, countrymen? These victories in the hands of churchmen have stopped our mouths. What shall we say? How shall we rail at the ministry next session of Parliament? How do we know we shall procure a new Parliament? In which of our administrations can we pretend the public treasury was so frugally and yet honorably managed? In supporting such vast alliances and carrying our arms into the heart of Germany, where English colors have never seen before. And then the success, oh, that torments our souls, which has attended all this. Then they'll be comparing this with the other sort of successes which we had, when foreigners commanded our troops at Steenkirk, Landen, and along, etc. for 10 years together. They'll mind us of the address made by the House of Lords to K. Will, the Commander-in-Chief, under His Majesty of the English forces, should be natural-born subject of His Majesty's, and complaining of the loss of honor to the English abroad, to the posts allowed them, and stipulated in former reigns, as well as dishonor thereby to the Crown of England, and humbly entreating that so many foreigners should not be employed, particularly in the Tower of London, over the stores, arms, and office of ordnance, etc. Of all which he took notice, the foreigners still carried it. They'll say that foreigners will still employ foreigners and trust them before the English, and thence represent to us the happiness of the crown being again returned to the true line of the Stuarts, which we resolved to extirpate, as was nastily discovered in the informations annexed to the account of the Rye House conspiracy. But the same resolution was renewed with vows by some of the chiefs of us upon the execution, which we call martyrdom, of L.R. And I'll tell thee, countrymen, we had it in full scent. Could hardly have been disappointed but for these, oh, these late victories which have broke all our measures. In Sven Hedin's opinion, Russia would then prefer some harbor on this side of the polar circle, blessed by darkness at midnight and sun at midday all through the year, and leading into a blank country. Free? Populated. Bishops formed its principal members, and at its head was placed Maximilian, Duke of Burgundy, Bavaria. I don't know if I've ever looked at that. the last paragraph of Schiller's History of the 30 Years' War, or just called 30 Years' War. That's why. The colossal labor of concluding this solemn and ever memorable and sacred treaty, which is known by the name of the Peace of Westphalia, the endless obstacles which were to be surmounted, the contending interests which it was necessary to reconcile, the concatenation of circumstances which must have cooperated to bring to a favorable termination this tedious but precious and permanent work of policy, the difficulties which beset the very opening of the negotiations, and the maintaining them, when opened, during the ever-fluctuating vicissitudes of the war, finally arranging the conditions of peace, and still more, the carrying them into effect. What were the conditions of this peace? What each contending power gained or lost by the toils and sufferings of a 30 years' war? What modification it wrought upon the general system of European policy? These are matters which must be relinquished to another pen. The history of the Peace of Westphalia constitutes a whole as important as the history of the war itself. The mere abridgment of it would reduce to a mere skeleton one of the most interesting and characteristic monuments of human policy and passions, and deprive it of every feature calculated to fix the attention of the public, for which I write, and of which I now respectfully take my leave. Wow. That is a pretty nice closing paragraph. Here's the first paragraph. From the beginning of the religious wars in Germany to the Peace of Munster, scarcely anything great or memorable occurred in the political world of Europe in which the Reformation had not an important share. All the events of this period, if they did not originate in, soon became mixed up with the question of religion, and no state was either too great or too little to feel directly or indirectly more or less its influence. Against the Reformed doctrine and its adherents, the House of Austria directed, almost exclusively, the whole of its immense political power. In France, the Reformation had enkindled a civil war which, under 4 stormy reigns, shook the kingdom to its foundations, brought foreign armies into the heart of the country, and for half a century rendered it the scene of the most mournful disorders. It was the Reformation, too, that rendered the Spanish yoke intolerable to the Flemings, and awakened in them both the desire and the courage to throw off its fetters, while it also principally furnished them with the means of their emancipation. And as to England, all the evils with which Philip II threatened Elizabeth were mainly intended in revenge for her having taken Protestant subjects under her protection and placing herself at the head of a religious party which it was his aim and endeavor to extirpate. In Germany, the schisms in the church produced also a lasting political schism, which made that country for more than a century the theater of confusion, but at the same time threw up a firm barrier against political oppression. It was, too, the Reformation principally that first drew the northern powers, Denmark and Sweden, into the political system of Europe, and while on the one hand the Protestant League was strengthened by their adhesion, it on the other was indispensable to their interests. States which hitherto scarcely concerned themselves with another's existence acquired through the Reformation an attractive center of interest and began to be united by new political sympathies. And as through its influence new relations sprang up between citizen and citizen, and between rulers and subjects, so also entire states were forced by it into new relative positions. Thus, by a strange course of events, religious disputes were the means of cementing a closer union among the nations of Europe. Fearful indeed and destructive was the first movement in which this general political sympathy announced itself, a desolating war of 30 years which, from the interior of Bohemia to the mouth of the Scheldt, and from the banks of the Po to the coasts of the Baltic, devastated whole countries, destroyed harvests, and reduced towns and villages to ashes, which opened a grave for many thousand combatants, and for half a century smothered the glimmering sparks of civilization in Germany, and threw back the improving manners of the country into their pristine barbarity and wildness. Yet out of this fearful war, Europe came forth free and independent. In it, she first learned to recognize herself as a community of nations, and this intercommunion of states, which originated in the 30 Years' War, may alone be sufficient to reconcile the philosopher to its horrors. The hand of industry has slowly but gradually effaced the traces of its ravages, while its beneficent influence still survives. This general sympathy among the states of Europe, which grew out of the troubles in Bohemia, is our guarantee for the continuance of that peace which was the result of the war. As the sparks of destruction found their way from the interior of Bohemia, Moravia, and Austria to kindle Germany, France, and half of Europe, so also will the torch of civilization make a path for itself from the latter to enlighten the former countries. All this was reflected by religion. Religion alone could have rendered possible all that was accomplished, but it was far from being the sole motive of the war. Had not private advantages and state interests been closely connected with it, vain and powerless would have been the arguments of theologians. The cry of the people would never have met with princes so willing to espouse their cause, nor the new doctrines have found such numerous, brave, and persevering champions. The Reformation is undoubtedly owing in a great measure to the invincible power of truth, or of opinions which were held as such. The abuses in the old church, the absurdity of many of its dogmas, the extravagance of its requisitions, necessarily revolted the tempers of men, already half won with the promise of a better light, favorably disposed them toward the new doctrines. Charm of independence, the rich plunder of monastic institutions, made the Reformation attractive in the eyes of princes, tended not a little to strengthen their inward conviction. Nothing, however, but political considerations could have driven them to espouse it. Had not Charles V, in the intoxication of success, made an attempt at independence of the Germans, Protestant would scarcely have rushed to arms in defense of freedom of belief. But for the ambition of the Guises, Calvinists in France would never have beheld a or a Coligny at their head. Without the exaction of the 10th and the 20th penny, the See of Rome had never lost the United Netherlands. Princes fought in self-defense or for aggrandizement, while religious enthusiasm recruited their armies and opened to them the treasures of their subjects. Multitude who flocked to their state, such as were not lured by the hope of plunder imagined. They were fighting for the truth, while in fact they were shedding their blood for the personal objects of their princes. And well was it for the people that on this occasion their interests coincided with those of their princes. For this coincidence alone were they indebted for their deliverance from popery. Well was it also for the rulers that the subject contended to for his own cause while he was fighting for their battles. Fortunately, at this date, no European sovereign was so absolute as to be able, in the pursuit of his political designs, dispense with the goodwill of his subjects. Yet how difficult was it to gain and to set to work this goodwill? The most impressive arguments drawn from reasons of state fall powerless on the ear of the subject, who seldom understands and still more rarely is interested. In such circumstances, the only course open to a prudent prince is to connect the interests of the cabinet with someone that sits nearer to the people's heart, if such exists, or if not, to create it. Dim and paltry, the raging moment threatened to out. Waving pall, vulgar coffin made of pine, not a reed, not e'en the poorest. Crime were swiftly carried to the grave. Bearers hastened onward. One unknown, round mantle wave, wide and noble, followed often, was the spirit of mankind. character by first touching their souls with idea that is artists through beauty across the great is considered by most classical Aigun. Longer in full one. Valuable remained just what was attracted moderate praise. More unmerited particular censures were, the more irritating were those felt early. Treatise of Herder's Homer, favorite of the day, which criticized, slighted, depreciated the prolegomena of F.A. Wulf's, appeared like a comet at that period in the sky of philology, caused a fierce attack on him by Wulf's heavy cavalry in the Allgemeine Literaturzeitung. The many wrong-headed philosophers who destroy our German literature by a mass of writings pretending to depth and only filled with transcendental chimeras of the brain. Really. Ne'er have I seen market and streets so thoroughly empty. Still is the grave peered out. I verily fancy 50 at most all our inhabitants. People are so in. All are running and racing merely to see the sad, poor fellows driven to exile. Down to the causeway now building. We mixed at ease in literary leisure, a store of charcoal, sulphur, and saltpeter, some iron tubes to make the mass completer, and hope the harmless squibs will give you pleasure. Some rise in fiery balls, and some in flames ascend on high, while some in wantonness we toss to please the idle eye. Gradually an airy structure was raised, a Xenian cuckoo's nest formed of authors' souls and cemented by witty apothegms. We feel them from the beginning, fanning our brows with graceful ease, refreshing as mountain breezes, or gently shed like a bright sunny shower. The curtain rises. The Senien. Merry creatures are hurrying to Leipzig Fair. A tall, aesthetical gatekeeper stops them. Halt, travelers, your names, your rank and calling say. Without a proper passport, no one can come this way. The Senian answer undismayed, Sir, we are epigrams. We scorn our calling to deny. Secure the portals as you please. We have our wings to fly. In heaven, German authors are now transformed into animals. Poor devil, groping after all the drivellers before ye. Your dullness was not all your own, you had it a priori. Scribblers only write incog, in post and advertiser, then you might puff yourself in print, and no one be the wiser. It is most amusing to see what has so infuriated this class of people, and how little idea they have of the strong fortress in which the man lives who is invariably in earnest, both with regard to his work and to himself. They really were just such people as the Xenian made them out to be, or even worse. Goethe's ballads are the delight of the experts. Schiller's ballads are among the most popular poems in the German language. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da.